All right. Well, hey, welcome. We're really excited today to talk with Brian Summerall. And we're going to be talking about ministry strategy and what he does with ministry strategy. He goes all over the world and trains people on Young Life and best practices, which is an amazing thing. Today, we're going to really be specifically talking about Young Life camping and kind of day 7 of Young Life camping, and then how does that flow into the fall, and how do we set up Young Life ministry year around kind of camp. I know a lot of people have already gone to camp so far, and there's actually a lot of people that are going to camp maybe through the rest of the summer. So, Brian, welcome, man.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it much. Glad to be here.
Very cool, very cool. Well, hey, can you give us a little brief history on kind of your involvement with Young Life over the years? Where did you start, and then kind of what different paths along the way, and then what's your current role?
Yes, I got involved in Young Life in college at Baylor University. I was a volunteer for 5 years, my 5 years, long years of college there. And then I went on staff in Waco for 2 years. That was way back in 1987. 1989, I moved to Richardson, where I was the area director for 20 or so years. And then now I am the Director of Ministry Strategy, which is a nice made-up title, which means that I tour around the country, like you said, training people in Young Life and the whys behind what we do and helping people in their existing ministries just increase the number of kids that we reach. So that's what I do now.
Very cool, very cool. Well, me and Brian have a long history together. He was actually my regional trainer back when I was on staff in Texas, which was really fun, and we just have a great relationship with that. And so just really excited that you're here to do that. So, Brian, if my Young Life area is going to Young Life camp still this year, which I know there's tons of people that are still doing that here at the end of July into August, what do I need to be thinking about? Maybe I'm the trip leader or just a leader for my area. What do I need to be thinking about as I'm thinking about kids, and what does that look like, I guess, from a camp perspective?
I think if you hadn't gone to camp yet, I think you need to be starting to think of Young Life Camp as the starter pistol for your fall, rather than the end of your year. I think I spent too many years in Young Life thinking the camp was the end of my year, and then we kind of got off the bus, and then we were relieved, and then we kind of took a little break, and then we'd start off the fall again. And momentum is a hard thing to recreate, and I don't know anything that we do better than Young Life Camp. And using camp as a starter's pistol for your fall and thinking of how does that move into fall, I think you can start thinking about that now. I think of NASCAR, of all things, if anybody knows anything about NASCAR, which I know very little. But I do know this. I know that they start out their year with the Daytona 500. It is their biggest event. The Super Bowl ends the NFL. That's their biggest event. But in NASCAR, they start with their biggest event and let that momentum carry them into the season. And I think that's what we need to start doing with Young Life Camp. So if you have not gone yet, a couple things I would request that you think about. Number one, making your fall schedule now, because if camp's going to be the beginning of your fall and the momentum that carries into the fall, we need to have things in place that we are ready to invite kids into. You don't want to be saying, hey, when we do this, I'll call you, or we'll think about that when we start thinking about starting club in the fall. We need to be starting to think about those things now. So before you leave for camp, I'd encourage you to get that school calendar out, which is out. Get the holidays out, all those kind of things. Create your fall club schedule, and then you have something to invite kids into as you're at camp. Otherwise, you're inviting them into this nebulous thing that doesn't exist, that they're not sure about, and then you lose that momentum. And the other thing I would make sure you've done if you haven't gone to camp, I think is very important. We talk about the ministry strategy, to meet 24 hours after getting home, to not lose that momentum. If you're going to a 7-day camp or a 5-day camp, if you're doing Wildlife or maybe Young Lives or something like that, or Capernaum, you've just eaten around 21 meals in a row together around a round table, and then kids get home and they're ready. They love that family they've been a part of for a week, and all of a sudden that is stripped away from them. and then they have to work hard to now create that community, and they shouldn't have to do that. You should have already done that for them. So you need to think about where are you going to be on the first night you get back from camp. Where are you all going to be having dinner together? What burger place are you going to be hanging out at? Whose pool are you going to be hanging out at? And then creating those times that we get together with our kids every day for 2 weeks when we get home. I'm getting into a really long answer, Dan, so I'm sorry, but the things you need to think about are the 24-hour getting together for a meal as soon as you get home. You get off the bus at 6 o'clock at your high school, then at 6 o'clock the next night you're having dinner together, talking about inside jokes from the bus, where you broke down, sharing stories for camp, living life together like you've always dreamed of doing with kids. And then for the next 2 weeks, maybe it's noon under your favorite tree at a park, maybe it's 10 o'clock at a coffee shop, maybe it's 6:30 at a leader's house. Every night get together for an hour with their devotional book that you will buy before you go to camp. We can hit that in a minute. And give them a place to learn to spend time with the Lord and learn to spend time in Scripture and to spend time with their leaders. So fall calendar planned, invite kids into something 24 hours after you get home, a place to eat together and share stories and live in community back home, not just at camp, and then every night for 2 weeks, a place for kids to gather, whether it's 3 kids or 60 kids, to learn to spend time with the Lord and hang out with their leaders. So those are 3 things I'm thinking about if I have not yet headed to camp yet.
Awesome. And I know that a big thing that I really appreciate about kind of ministry strategy and thinking through this is that you have tons of resources on the website people can go to and be a part of. One of the things that I love is the idea around day 7 in your area meeting, and bringing your area together and talking about and casting that vision for kids. So will you just take us through, like, what is like a day 7 meeting? What should it look like? How should it feel? What are some of the things we should do in that meeting when we're at camp and casting that vision for kids for the fall?
Well, as soon as you get to camp, you need to talk to head leaders and look at the schedule for day 7. I know they won't have it up because they give you the schedule 24 hours in advance, but ask them, is the program team and are the head leaders scheduling day 7 or day 5 meetings for you? Some program teams will do that, some will not. You know, it's up to the team. So if there is one scheduled, know that you'll have a 30 to 40-minute meeting at the end of camp scheduled. If they don't do that for you, then you need to take the initiative yourself. You need to ask the head leaders to give you a room. Say, hey, can I have the club? If camp closes at 4 o'clock on day 7 or day 5, can I have the club room at 3:30? And you need to look at your ride schedule to make sure that, all your girls aren't on the ropes during that time or something like that. Or you need the leader room or something like that. Then you can go to bsummerall.com, BSUMMERALL.com, and you can download a day 7 meeting agenda on the downloads page. Now you can certainly adapt it and make it your own. But the things I want to accomplish in that meeting, I want to get feedback from my kids on potential shirts. We do a fall shirt for club that every kid wears. We say take the worry out of what to wear on Mondays, and I've gone to the camp store and I've asked the store for the top 2 or 3 selling shirts, and I want to get an idea from my kids if they're willing to change, Crooked Creek to Pierce High School in 1941 to 729, and get an idea of what they'll pay their last $15 for and starve on the way home. In order to own that shirt, and can they see that shirt being our club shirt, and let them kind of vote on things like that. At that day 7 meeting, I want to remind them of what happened at club every night, that they and their friends crammed up against those doors 45 minutes early to burst in the door and trample any staff kid who got in their way to get a front row seat for somebody to open up a Bible and share the gospel with them. And I want to remind them that that's my vision for our high school back home, that doesn't have anything to do with proximity to a blob or to a zip code or altitude or a lake or zip line, that can happen back at our club every week, that they and their friends can be pressed up against those doors, and that they're the ones that are going to make that happen, to give them vision, again, inviting them into something. Let's go do this together back home. We are going to make Young Life the place to be for your entire school, and what you did here every night is going to happen back home, every Monday night back home. So I want to give vision. We're going to, I know it's not maybe a ministry strategy thing, but we're going to have already bought 100 postcards at the store, and we're going to have kids write postcards home, and we're going to have the the mailing labels for our top 100 donors already printed and ready to go, and give kids just a format. We don't want to write the letter for them, but just a simple write up on the dry erase board. My name is blank. I attend blank high school. This week I spent a week at Frontier Ranch. My favorite part was fill in the blank. You know, the horses, cabin time, whatever. And this week and we give them options. Learn more about my relationship with God, committed myself to Christ for the first time, saw many of my friends commit themselves to Christ, whatever it is. Thanks for making that possible. Very simple thing, and we let them know that there are hundreds of people that made this week happen for you, and many of them are back home, and they don't get a chance to see the things that you see. And to get a note from you saying thank you really means the world to them. And so they really embrace that and jump into that. I'll explain to them at that day 7 how we choose Young Life presidents. You don't have to have Young Life presidents, but if you go to bsummerall.com, go to the downloads page, you'll see our requirements for Young Life president. How we choose that, we want somebody, a couple of kids in the school that we partner with, that will partner with our team to make sure that Young Life is a place to be on Monday nights, that everybody in the school is invited to Young Life. And we want to give them a vision to make sure that they know that Young Life is not their exclusive club just for them. Young Life needs to be the place that everyone in the school is invited to and feels safe at and welcome at. And we talk about in the group and brainstorm how we can make that happen. Also at a day 7 meeting, I'll challenge them that the only way I want to see them back at camp is not for a week, but for a month. To don't settle for just coming back and being kind of a spectator, but come back and be behind the scenes and be on work crew. And then at that day 7 meeting, the most important thing we do is we physically hand them their devotional book with an invitation in it. This is not something we scramble for at the camp store and hope they have enough books of the one we want, but then another group just came in last week and bought them all out, and then you got nothing. You can go online. You can buy My First 30 Quiet Times at saltresources.com. You can buy What Now or After Camp at whitecapsmedia.com. You can get another book called Fresh Breath that Todd Pinkston wrote. You can download it's a camp follow-up book. You can download the PDF for that at campaignerstraining.com. And if you like it, you can just use the PDF. If you want an actual physical book, you can buy them just for the cost of shipping at campaignerstraining.com. But buy books for all your kids, print up an invitation, have the burger place or pizza place or house reserved for your camp follow-up party. And I'd recommend, honestly, just on a side note, I mentioned pool party. I'd say don't do a pool party. It's hard for kids to share about their camp week when they're wearing next to nothing and hanging out together. So that's a bit of a distraction. So I'd say burger place or something like that. You can sit down at a table and talk with kids about their week and reminisce about camp and tell stories and not worry about guys and girls and all that fun kind of stuff. So they physically get an invitation and they are told, tomorrow night we're having dinner at Burger House. The next night we're all at Jenny's house doing our devotionals. And we give them a vision of we're going to live life together back home. So I think those are the most important things that happen at a day 7 meeting, giving vision, inviting them into something, letting them know we're going to live in community when we get back home. So, and those agendas are on bsummerall.com if you're interested.
Great, great. So I have my day 7 stuff. You know, I'm going to bring my day 7 kit to camp. I've got my devotionals in it. I've got invitations. I've got everything to go. We're going to cast this awesome vision for kids. We're going to come home every week, every day. We're going to have 2. You know, we're going to have for the next 2 weeks. We're going to have something that kids are going to be involved in, and they're going to be impacted in those things. So so we've kind of done that piece. So then how do we move from there into the fall? What are some steps that you could give us is like, okay, we've built off the momentum these 2 weeks. Now we're actually going to be moving in the fall. We're thinking about club. We're thinking about people in the school, our Young Life presidents. Maybe if you can give us some kind of vision around, okay, kind of what's the next step from there?
My hope is after the 2 weeks of devotionals that campaigner groups are starting, that cabins want to continue their cabin time. And if I've had, you know, you might start out with 75% of your kids coming to camp follow-up the first week. You might wind up with 30% of your kids the next week. Kids go on vacation, they work, athletics, things like that. But as that dwindles down, then my hope is that turns into campaigners, that you start meeting once a week, that you schedule that out until maybe about the week before school, that either cabins would do that by class or you do one big group thing a week. Through that, you are also having lunches. After those devotionals start, that you start having lunches with key kids that you did not get to sit down with at camp and give them a vision for, hey, the fall is coming up. Young Life is going to be the place to be. If you make it the place to be with your friends, I need your help. One-on-ones, one-on-two lunches with you and your guys, Dan, me and my guys, the girls doing the same thing with their girls, inviting them into something. This is going to be, especially seniors. I think seniors and 8th graders, whoever the king of the hill is at your school, they're thinking this is going to be my year. You know, this is built up to be the best year. We're the top of the food chain here. Really partnering with them and saying, hey, this is going to be your year. In Young Life, you're going to be so big, such a big part of Young Life, and making a difference in your school and leaving a legacy. This is going to be a different place when you leave because of what we did together and how God used it this year. So lunches with your guys, lunches with your girls, talking about, hey, who's going to do skits this year? Hey, what do you think about these shirts? Who's going to be great at doing music this year? What if we did this? What if we did that? How can we make Club at Home look more like Club at Camp? And let them think through ideas of how they're going to make that happen. I'm going to involve seniors in the shirts. We're going to bring back those shirts that we got at camp, and then we're going to meet at the mall, and then we're going to get some extra shirts, and then we're going to start meeting, 3 weeks before school starts, and seniors voting on what the Monday shirt is going to be. And again, we say take the worry out of what to wear on Mondays, and everybody's wearing their shirts on Mondays, and seniors get to pick what that is. So 3 weeks before school starts, seniors are in the club room screaming about what shirt and voting for what shirt they're going to wear the first day of school. They're getting excited about club. You've got to, in order to make this work, you've got to figure out when is your first club going to be, and then you need to back out from there. When's the best Monday? Is it the Monday after Labor Day? Is it before Labor Day, depending on if your school starts really early in August, something like that? But whenever your first club is, you've got to back out from that. So you back out a week from first club, and you do what's called pre-club meeting. And I'll hit that in a second, but I'll start from the beginning. And you back out a week from that, and you do what I would call a senior meeting. If you're not working with a lot of seniors, I would say it's a fat kid meeting. We call those kids, they're faithful, available, teachable, who's always at campaigners, who went to camp, who always get their deposit in, just a key group of kids. And then you back out from that, and you go back about 3 weeks from that, and you start doing contact work with kids about T-shirts. We talk about it's not just a T-shirt. It's contact work, it's vision, it's ownership. And then you back out from that, and you've got your campaigners, and you back out from that, and that's where your 2 weeks of devotionals come in. So that's what you fill in from your summer. So you go from 2 weeks of devotionals to a few weeks of weekly campaigners to then partnering with the seniors or the 8th graders and picking the shirts and getting excited and then inviting their friends to the pre-club meeting, which is the very first day of school, or the senior meeting or fat kid meeting, which is the first day of school, where you cast vision. There are agendas for all of this on bsummerall.com. Then you go into a pre-club meeting where they invite all their friends to hear one last time about Young Life, and then you go into first club. So everything starts at first club, and you back your way backwards. Does that make sense at all?
Great. Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that because it helps us kind of think through some of those weeks, and that, it's not just, hey, here, club's starting, and people just show up the first week. We're inviting kids into the process and creating vision and talking through those things, which I think is a really important piece of this, is that, which I think you said over and over, which I really appreciate, is that we need to be inviting kids into the process. We need to make sure that this is something that we're owning with them, and more importantly, God is owning with all of us, and that we really get to kind of do that. So let's say our area went to camp in June, and we didn't do any of this stuff, right? So we didn't do a day 7 meeting, and kids got off the bus, and maybe we did a follow-up meeting with them, or maybe not. And now it's mid to end of July, and we're thinking, okay, club's going to start maybe in September or at the end of August. So what would you say to people that maybe have missed some of these steps and are thinking about the fall? How would I re-engage? What are some things that I could do to help kind of create the vision with kids that went to camp with me, even though we didn't do some of these intermediate steps?
If you did not do any of these intermediate steps, you are just a loser, and you will have no one at club this fall. So sign off now. No. If you did not do any of these things, it is not too late. It is July. It is mid-July. Earliest schools I know start up mid-August. Some of them don't start till September. It's just about contact work, and you have got to find a way to re-engage your kids you went to camp with, even if that's just 2 or 3 of your guys that you can meet for a burger or some barbecue or cookout or something like that, and sit them down and say, hey, we have got to recreate what we did at camp back home. And if it's and talking with them about that vision and saying, who do you know that you think might want to partner with us on that? And then getting some of your if I'm a guy leader, I'm doing that, and I'm hoping my female leaders are going to do the same, getting 2 or 3 girls together saying, hey, you just started that lunch process. You pretend these are the kids I missed at camp. Now I'm going to sit down with them here. I'm going to take their mind back to camp and all of those things. Who are kids you want to partner with you on the process? But you've got to do that now. We cannot be walking into school the first day of school, and that's our re-engagement. That is totally, you've lost your momentum, and it's going to take you a while to get that back. Kids on the first day of school should be chomping at the bit for club because they've been spending so much time with you and your leaders getting ready for it. They can't wait. So that starts now. What's today? July 16th, 17th, 18th? I don't even know. I'll look on my Mac here. What's today?
16th.
Today is July 16th. If your school starts August 16th, which, oh my gosh, I can't believe it started that early. You've got 4 weeks. That is plenty of time. You're engaging a couple kids, your other leaders are engaging a couple kids, then you get those kids together, maybe you get 8 kids in a room, you begin to give them vision like you would at a day 7 meeting. Maybe you're not going to do the devotionals now, but you're going to give them vision. You're going to invite them into something. And say, next week, let's all meet at the mall. Let's grab the shirts. Okay, find me 8 more of your friends that'll vote on shirts with us. And then the next week, you're grabbing pizza with 16 kids, and you're brainstorming things from camp that you want to recreate back home. So it really comes down to contact work, creating contact work, one-on-ones with lunches, talking about kids who they want to include, and let that momentum start picking up. And I hope through 2 or 3 kids becomes that snowball that starts rolling down the hill, and other things start sticking to it. So by the time you get to first day of school, you've got 30, 40 kids that are on your team that can't wait for club to start. They voted on the T-shirt. They've seen the calendar. They know when it's going to start. They've made lists of their friends. Who is their niche in the school? Every Young Life used to talk about key kids, but every kid's a key kid. Every kid has their niche in the school. Maybe it's the one kid you sit next to in algebra class, or maybe it's the whole JV girls volleyball team. It doesn't matter how big it is, but you've got your niche, your sphere of influence. Maybe it's the kids who play hacky sack out in the courtyard during lunch. That's going to be your group that you're going to begin to plug into, and you're going to start praying for them to be at that first club. So you can take that small group of kids and all the things we talked about. All you miss is the devotionals in your day 7 meeting, but you can pick up with the lunches, and you can look at the agendas for the pre-club meeting and the senior meeting and adapt that to your schedule now.
Awesome. What would be, I know that you've been to camp a bunch and program and speaking and all that kind of stuff. So what would you think would be a couple key elements as we're looking at kind of this whole strategy with stuff, as I'm living day to day with these kids, 7 days at a high school week of camp. What are some things as a leader that I need to be keeping in mind, not only for the week, but as we cast vision, as we do this and stuff for our kids as we go along the way?
I think that again, we keep getting back to the theme of inviting kids into something. I just think that God may surprise you in the kids that He raises up to partner with you to do this, to not stereotype that it's got to be the quarterback, or it's got to be the cheerleader, or it's got to be the most outgoing person. That God may have some kids ready for some adult to speak into their life. You can do this, and let's do this together. I think David certainly wasn't the first choice when they saw all his brothers, and they looked up much better and said, but man looks at the outward appearance, but God sees the heart. And God knows the heart of those kids that you invited to camp, and maybe some of the more unlikely ones might be ready to do something and might be ready to be a part. I mean, I used to have a leader named Keith, and I think Keith was shy, and he was quiet and kind of meek and mild, and I think his spiritual gift was stacking chairs. And he would stack chairs like no other to get ready for club, but he loved it. And just be ready that God may surprise you with people that he may prepare to partner with you. But be ready to whisper in that kid's ear, or to sit down during a one-on-one, or kind of nudge up next to him in club and go, hey, you could make this happen back home. You see what's going on around you right now? You could be a part of something amazing back home. And invite them into something. And I really think Jesus did that. I think he did that with Peter. And when he said, you're the rock upon which I'll build my church, and Peter was a flake and wasn't maybe the guy you choose. I think when he said to the disciples, I will make you fishers of men, and there's a reason a lot of them were fishermen, because no rabbi, and all the rabbis had passed those guys over. And Jesus partnered with them and changed the world. And that's what you're doing. You're partnering with your kids and jumping in and changing a community. You're changing a school. You're changing an entire class of kids. Or God is, and you just get to participate. But we need to be looking for those moments, those aha moments, that a kid will get it, and watch that kid light up when you invite them into what they were created for. If we get this mentality of we're leaders and they're just kids, and we wind up performing for them and entertaining them and really ripping them off. So look for those aha moments with kids, whether it be walking up to the Ridge Runners, or coming down from rappelling, or singing a fast song in club and just pulling them aside, or walking on the way to cabin time and going, you know what, I think you could make a big difference in your school. And I remember having a kid say to me one time, but I'm not the quarterback. I'm not the popular kid. And I was like, I don't care. God is calling you to be used in your school, and you're going to make an amazing difference. So I think we need to be looking for those moments as we go through the week.
Yeah. I think sometimes we fall in the trap as young life leaders as we go, well, okay, these kids are outgoing or leaders or popular kids, and so there's kids that I'm going to just push in to invest in, and these kids over here that maybe are not in those areas or not in those circles, we go, okay, they're not going to have as much influence. And I love this, because I think it's creating a vision for every kid, right? I mean, we're about Young Life, we're about every kid, everywhere for eternity, and we can't do that as Young Life leaders. We have to say, hey, we're going to be about every single kid in our cabin. The popular kids, yes, they're going to attract probably other kids, but some of these kids that that aren't in that group, they may be bringing actually more kids into the fold, right? They may be bringing different kinds of kids that we may not even be able to get to as Young Life leaders. And that's the thing I really appreciate about this, is that it is casting the vision for every single kid, and that our club is made up with a wide variety of kids all over the spectrum, that we get to see that and we get to do that. So any other thoughts, Brian, you would have for us as we kind of are looking for come from camp into the fall? What does that look like? How do we carry this momentum? I know sometimes we come off of camp and we do day 7 stuff, and we're hanging out with kids for a couple of weeks, and we're doing these meetings with them, and then club starts, and we get a month or 2 down the line, and then all of a sudden we're weary as Young Life leaders, and kids are weary of club maybe at that point, or some of the things. How do we really help kind of make this a lasting thing throughout the school year for kids?
I think one thing is, you've got to do it. I think you know me, Dan. I'm against the term student leader. I think leaders are adults who are plugged into a church, who are not in high school, who come and be Young Life leaders, and they've signed on for something. They know the expectation, and they've agreed to certain things that they will do. I think with kids, we need to make sure that these things, we don't put these, we have 1 or 2 Young Life presidents, and They didn't just become a believer that summer. They're mature, and we vetted them very well and explained the job to them. But other than that, the other kids that we asked to partner with us, it's through relationship that we ask them to partner with us, not through performance. And I think kids get burned out sometimes when we put too much performance expectations on them versus just relational. Come with me to do this, and we'll do it together. That's relational. You're a student leader is a job, and then you feel guilty if you let me down. There's a difference between that. And what I want to say to kids is, come with us. This will be a blast. I will love you the same whether you're there or not. I'm just inviting you into something I think will be fun that we will do together. But I'll still be in your world, and even if you don't do it. And I think kids find that attractive, and that carries the momentum better through the fall rather than, here's a student leader packet, and you got to sign these expectations, and you got to sign this covenant, and you got to do all these kind of different things of your behavior, and then they begin to avoid you out of guilt, and then your leadership team gets smaller and smaller, and you become the rumor police and all of those things. So I think you've got to do, as you head into the fall, as you partner with kids, you do it with the biggest open hand possible. You do it with the biggest, just come with us and have fun, and you do it with a huge amount of grace that I love you and care about you, and when I'm at the school, you don't need to run up to me and tell me why you weren't at club, because that's not why I care about you. And I think kids find that attractive and refreshing, and then they're going to wind up really being there anyway, because if you're doing all these things with them during the week and hanging out with them, they're going to want to be at club anyway. And I think that keeps the momentum going. I think Bob Goff in Love Does says, was something like, love never has to pick sides. It draws a circle around everyone and says you're in. And that's what I want to do in Young Life. I constantly want to be making that circle bigger and bigger and saying, you're in. Come with us. This will be a blast. And as we do that, that community becomes attractive, and people just want to be a part of it. And I think it keeps that momentum going. But I do think keeping our campaigners focused on always looking for that next kid, that this is not a mutual admiration society. This is not our thing we put on club. It's, yeah, we could do that skit, but how do we get so-and-so and so-and-so involved in that skit? How are we always reaching out to new people to get them involved? I love what Tony Evans says about football. He says that 90,000 people don't fill the stands to watch 11 men huddle. They'll tolerate it for 25 seconds, but they want to know that what you do in private works out there in public when there's opposition. And I always want to be taking my campaigner kids and going, this is not about us huddling here. This is about us doing something significant in the school. And how are we constantly bringing new people in and including them? And I think that makes things fresh and new versus wearing people out, and it helps keep that momentum going. You're going to have attrition. You're going to have attrition, in your daily devotionals come camp. And you're going to have kids you thought were going to be these amazing leaders that all of a sudden get the starring role in a school musical, or are suddenly starting at point guard for the basketball team, that slowly, their involvement dips off. But you love them just the same. You treat them just the same at school, but you also know that God has other people that He's raising up that carries that momentum out. That's a long answer, but that's the way I try to look at it.
That's awesome. That's great. That's good. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this today. I mean, this is really great. I think this will be really helpful for young life leaders out there who are in this, range of camp, or just come home from camp and thinking about the fall, because it is going to be before us before we know it. I mean, it's going to be here before we know it, and we need to be thinking about it. This is a crucial time to be having that calendar and planning it out and all that kind of stuff. So you mentioned a bunch of resources. So how can people get those resources, and then how can people get connected with you on social media stuff?
bsummerall.com on the downloads page, and there's some resources there, or ministrystrategy41.com, whatever you can remember, the easiest. Campaignerstraining.com, a guy named Todd Pinkston runs that, who we both know, and he does a great job of that. On Twitter, I'm at bsummerall, BSUMMERALL, or email me, bsummerall@mac.com. Either way, and happy to answer any questions or give any resources that you need.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for hanging out and being a part of this. I know people will be watching this later on as well, and so we really appreciate that. If you have any questions, we'd love to answer those, and I think this is a great strategy that'll help create that momentum for the fall. We want to reach as many kids as we possibly can. We're about every kid, everywhere for eternity, and I think this will really help us do that. So thanks, Brian, for your time, and we appreciate you being on with us.
All right, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.